Strap on your helmets and rev up your engines for Wheel People with Ed Lamberton. 2 hours of local dirt track racing. Ed Lamberton touches on local racing in and around the area. Wheel People is brought to you by Four Corner Tire, Elmo's Auto Body, Sampson Motor Car, Tanner's Lumber, and Adirondack Harley Davidson, where the mountain meets the road. Now, with your racing news, fast, Ed Lamberton. Tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Sampson Motor Car, Amsterdam, New York. Four Corner Tire, Elmo Speed and Supply, Fonda Speedway Memories Facebook pages, Adirondack Harley Davidson, where the mountain meets the road, and Dairy Frost. Thank you for tuning in to Wheel People with Ed Lamberton. Now back to our show.
And a good evening, everyone. And look at this, 6 minutes off. Not bad. We're gaining. Oh, hopefully everybody can hear me. We'll find that out. Write them out now. Hopefully it's going to be a great show from the top to the bottom. I think it's going to be. I'm excited, just like a kid in a candy shop here. CD Koval, Super CD Koval, the man, the myth, the legend, will be here with us. Hopefully if he answers his alarm clock. He said he'll probably be taking a little nap before we go on, so he'll be fresh as a daisy when he gets with us. And then, of course, we'll wrap up the show tonight with arguably could be said the greatest there ever was, or the GOAT. A lot of throw him in that category. Brett Hearn, over 900 career wins, picked up 2 more, swept the weekend at Albany, Saratoga, and Lebanon Valley this past weekend, and finished 6th, I believe, last night at the Weedsport Speedway. So Brett is on a roll. He's obviously going to talk a little bit about the big show coming up at Albany, Saratoga, a couple of weeks from now. And then, of course, the big show coming up, the little big show, I guess we call her the tribute race, coming up tomorrow night at Albany, Saratoga. The tribute to C.D. Koval and Jack Johnson. And the one of the masterminds, and maybe he was the mastermind, who came up with the idea of having a tribute race over at Albany, Saratoga for C.D. Koval and Jack Johnson. The one, the only, Johnny Licata, will be with us shortly and talk about what's going to happen over at Albany, Saratoga tomorrow. And let me get raised up a little bit here. I'm down in the hole so I can see myself. There we go. That's better. Anyhow, we will be talking with Johnny Licata about the tribute to CD and Jack Johnson coming up tomorrow night at Albany, Saratoga. All the special things they're doing, and it's going to be great. We will be, well, I don't want to spoil it. A lot of you who have been on the Facebook have seen that DKM has gone ahead and built a special body for Stuart Friesen tomorrow night. And, of course, Stuart, that close to, where is it? That close to picking up his first Truck Series win this week. Ran auto laps, basically, NASCAR running a lot of caution laps, and he was right there with his teammate, Johnny Sauter, who ended up winning the event, but he had to settle for second place. Yeah. Well, let me turn this off altogether here. There we go. Now we're good. Yeah, I could. Oh, you could hear that too? I could hear it.
I could hear it through the phone.
Okay. It's gone. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. But anyhow, we will be talking, as I said, to Johnny Licata to talk about the tribute. Then we will go with Super CD himself. Maybe we get Johnny to hang on with us because he's probably got more information on some of the history of CD Koval than I can remember in my small little brain here. It's been a while since CD's been on the racetrack. It certainly was during my era, that's for sure. But John, I think, is maybe more of a stat man than myself or CD. Maybe CD will whip off some numbers too. He's very possible to do that. Pretty sharp. And of course, Brett Hearn will wrap things up. Before we get to all of that, let's quickly run down what is or what has happened, or what did happen over the past weekend. As we said, Mother Nature cooperated. I don't know if it had anything to do with Utica Rome not having a race scheduled for this weekend, but of course, you know, they've been only able to get in one show this season, and they were off this week because of Frogfest, a big radio station, country station out in the Utica area, holding Frogfest at Utica Rome, and they obviously made more money doing that than they would if they were running racetracks, probably. So they pulled the pin on the night, and our own Glen Ridge Motorsports Park, the Ridge, better known as now, did sneak in at the last moment a modified show, big block, small block, pretty much open, run what you got under the hood, and a pretty decent turnout for a race that was scheduled or not on the schedule and just came out of the blue last Tuesday. And Rocky Warner picked up his first modified win under the Jake Spraker banner, and kind of thought that might happen. Rocky Warner loves Glen Ridge Motorsports Park. Actually picked up his first big block win there a year or two ago in a low buck big block motor that they had bought. And so Rocky now has 2 modified feature wins at the Ridge, and looking for more at other racetracks soon to come, I'm sure. So I'm sure I got a load off Rocky's back, and also maybe got Jake off his back for a little bit. Probably not, but it'll help anyway. So we will run down quickly what transpired. If we can back up to actually, we want to go back to last Wednesday night. Bobby Varon, who was on a roll, kind of like he was at the end of last season. Remember, he won the KOD Series and the Fonda race. Well, he won Fonda a week ago Saturday. Won the KOD Series, the 358 Small Block Series over at Devil's Bowl Speedway, the first race for the modifieds on the dirt, the big dirt track, and held off Jeremy Wilder. They started up front and battled each other throughout the event. Jeremy led early, and then Bobby finally took command towards the end of the event to pick up the win. Mark Johnson, last year's winner of this King of Dirt opener at Devil's Bowl, finishing up in the 3rd spot. And we did get some inside information that it's it'll be known tomorrow. That's for sure when he gets there. But Mark Johnson will be in the Andy Romano number 97, subbing for Peter Britton tomorrow night over at the tribute race, and he will be stepping in. Of course, Jeff Trombley did the subbing for Peter Britton, who is suffering with some back issues. We talked to Peter about that a couple of weeks ago, and he said that, you know, that definitely was an issue, and he's still trying to overcome it. He was on some medication and hoping to ease the pain, but it's got to the point where he had to take a week off. Hopefully he'll be back this Friday over at Albany, Saratoga, and then continue on. But Peter Britton, our prayers go out to him to get better. Nothing worse than a bad back, and especially if you're a racer, because these things can be a little tough on the back, that's for sure. So we will see. Mark Johnson kind of, well, turned out it was a good deal for Mark, as well, as his car was pretty well hammered up on Friday night at Albany, Saratoga, when he got spun and then got clipped pretty good by oncoming vehicles, and got towed off the track and was a DNF on Friday night. So Mark unable to get his car ready for tomorrow night, and Andy needing a driver for tomorrow night. I don't know, Jeff Trombley, I guess, might have had some other commitments, but Jeff was doing a great job on Friday night until he clipped the Uke tire and had some problems, and he retired early. So they're trying to keep Peter Britton in points. Good question somebody brought up to me, and I know that it's a possibility that Lyle may be listening tonight, but they're wondering, if being this race tomorrow night is a show-up points, who gets the show-up points, Mark Johnson or Peter Britton for the event? Because Peter certainly and Mark are both in the points hunt year in and year out in the last couple of years, that's for sure. Of course, Peter, the defending champion, and with a deal like this where you have somebody filling in for an injured driver, Peter got the points for Jeff Trombley obviously last Friday, but tonight or tomorrow night, Tuesday night, just a question throwing out. I have no idea how they're going to handle it. I'm sure. I'm thinking they're both going to get Peter because it's his car, and Mark because it's his person. So we'll see. But if anybody knows for sure, fire away. Facebook is running along on the side here, if anybody knows for sure. But as we said, back on Wednesday night was Varon over Wilder. Mark Johnson, Steve Bernier, the Canadian who runs up the Airborne Park Speedway, finishing in fourth, and Demetrios Grelos rounding out the top five. The Matt DiLorenzo, Donnie Rocca, Jesse Mueller, Rocky Warner, Frank Horde the third, and Kenny Tremont, who everybody thought was odds-on favorite to win that race, did not, and finished just outside the top 10. So a good turnout of cars, 26, I believe, showed up for the event. So that was the beginning of the long summers of the King of Dirt 358 series. Then on a regular Friday night over at the Albany Saratoga Speedway, as we said, it was Brett Hearn, who we will be chatting with here in just a little bit towards the end of the show. And Brett and Mark Flack putting on a heck of a race up front, along with Bobby Hackle, who was actually the early leader. And those three guys were waging a battle royal. Then he got onto lap traffic, and things kind of went sideways for a couple of them. Certainly Mark Flack, who got into Brian Gleason late on in the race and eliminated himself from the event. And in that whole same scenario is when Hackle got shuffled out, and Brett took over the lead and never looked back, so to speak, as he went on to pick up his 130-something-ish feature win at Albany Saratoga. So 900 and counting. I think we're up to 910 or something like that. We'll find out. Brett will know, I'm sure. Anyhow, a great race again as the guys were charging through from the back. Brett started in 10th, and that seems to be the magic potion. That line, the row 10, or 5 actually, seems to be, I believe Tremont is where he started when he won his feature there a couple of weeks ago. And it's hard to come from 15th or 16th like those guys used to do all the time. Now the quality of the field is getting stiffer and stiffer as we go. At the, let me see here. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Down at the bottom, naturally. Finishing in the runner-up spot was Ronnie Johnson. And I think we have Paul Licata on the line. Paul, is that you? Or not Paul. John, I'm sorry.
Yes, it is me.
Okay. All right.
That's right. Everybody. Everybody gets us confused. Paul and I sound the same, so.
Yeah. Well, if you only had his talent, you'd be worth money, but that's it.
Well, that's true.
Anyhow.
I'm not worth much, is
right.
what we're saying.
No, I'm not saying that. I'd say you'd be worth more. Just hang on just a second here. We're just finishing up here. Ronnie Johnson, who had worked his way from the back of the field on Friday night, picking up a runner-up spot, and RJ, after picking up the win the first week, has, along with Brett Hearn, been one of the most consistent guys on Friday night, and certainly going to be one of the odds-on favorite, along with Hearn, tomorrow night for the tribute race. Bobby Hackle, who led early and looking better every week, running the high side, finishing up in third. Fourth went to Matt DiLorenzo, who also came from a ways back, and Matty D is going to add his name, I'm sure, before the season is out as well as winners, because Matty's going forward each and every week. Chris Vernod, Kenny Tremont, Jack Lanier, Jackie Brown Jr., who also looked good early on, starting up front on the pole and led a few laps early, but Jackie going back to his old 3-year-old car, I think it was, he said on Friday night, trying to find the right combination. Jeff Rockefeller, good top 10 for Jeff, and rounding out was Demetrios Grelos with the thing. And as you said, Mark Johnson, always a contender back in 28th after suffering that crash later on in the event. Joey Scarborough picking up his first sportsman win of the season, and it was a big one. It was a Mark Hughes Memorial. Of course, that one honors Mark Hughes, the very popular, both on the pit side and in the stand side, sportsman driver who lost his life a couple years ago down in New York City driving truck for a living, and he's remembered every year by his good friend Derek McGrew, who goes out and gets special money and stuff together, and it was a special win for Joey Scarborough. Timmy Hartman Jr., who came from deep in the field of sportsmen, Hard Charger award goes to Tim, finishing up in second spot. Nick Lesueur was third, Chris Johnson fourth, Nick Freddo rounding out the top five, then Chad Edwards, Robert Bublak, Dave Constantino, Calabrese, and Brian Calabrese, that is, and Adam McAuliffe rounding out the top 10. Pro Stocks, Josh Coonrod, who's on a roll, and one of these nights we're going to catch up with Josh. We've missed him twice now, and didn't even try this week because we had our plate was full here, but Josh Coonrod picking up the win, his first over at Albany Saratoga. Of course, he won at Fonda a couple of weeks back. Cousin Luke coming home in second spot, and then Dean Charbonneau, Norton Loblier, and Walt Brownell. The hot ticket in Pro Stocks was Kenny Martin. Kenny struggled a little bit on Friday night, finishing back in seventh. Okay, we'll feel sorry for him next week, but he'll be back, I'm sure, on Friday. Dylan Bocus picking up the win in the Limited Sportsman over Justin Buff. And the Street Stocks, Randy Miller, again and again and again. He just keeps winning over there. Got that place wired. We'll probably be seeing Randy as he follows the footsteps of other great Street Stockers moving into the Pro Stocks or the Sportsman here very shortly. As we said down at Valley, it was Brett Hearn over Keith Flack. Those two guys can't stay away from each other here lately, and I'm sure they're going to be close together again tomorrow night at the trivia race. Ronnie Johnson, another strong run for Ronnie. Ronnie's having a great start to the season down at his new home track on Saturday night. He has missed at Fonda, there's no doubt about that, but it's great to see him doing very well down at Lebanon. Elmo Reckner and Kenny Tremont rounding out the top five. J.R. Hefner over Tremont in the small blocks. The Pro Stocks went to Rob Yetman, who won the first event and hasn't won since, and crashed and wrecked and whatever, but Robbie back in victory lane at the Valley on Saturday night. And then, of course, at the Track of Champions, Fonda Speedway, in the Pro Stocks, Randy Kozelman picking up his first Pro Stock feature event win. Congratulations to Randy. A.J. Walters, also a great run. Those two dueled it out throughout much of the event. The top five guys, just like they have been the last couple of weeks, in a bunch. And you didn't know who was going to come out in the head of everything until it was all said and done. Chucky Dembluski was third. Henny Gates in fourth, and Ivan Jocelyn rounding out the top five. And our guest last week and winner last week, Cassidy Wilson, was sixth. And in the Sportsman event, a familiar name, but not familiar to maybe some of the fans that haven't been there in a while, but 15 years, I think I counted, or 16, since Brian Borscht graced victory lane. Of course, that was back in the Open Sportsman days, so Brian getting back in the game this year and picking up his first win here only 5 weeks into the week, or into the season, so a pretty good run for him, that's for sure. Jason Grieco, also a good run in second. David Manchester, Robert Bublak, and Nick Scavia found the outside a little late, but he was coming. His fastest time was on lap 25, the last lap of the event. So Nick finding it a little late. Mark Mortensen, the winner a week ago, finishing up in 8th spot. Tony Ferrone was 9th, and Aaron Burton rounding out the top 10. And, of course, in the modifieds, Bobby Viren once again over Josh Holmforce. Josh has just got to be shaking his head and wondering, what in heck do I got to do? 3 weeks in a row, leading by a lot late on in the event. And then, of course, the restarts. He lost to Stewie a couple of weeks ago. Then he lost to Viren a week ago. And then Saturday night, he lost to Viren again on the next to last lap, as Bobby was able to run the bottom and get by as they went into turn one on the last lap. It was balls to the wall, as they say, and Bobby was up in the wall as he came across to take the win the next lap around. Cody Blue, great run for Cody. Good to see him running up front in the modifieds. Jeremy Wilder was fourth, and Sean Peigman rounding out the top five. Then it was Fuller, Rocky Warner, Scott Huber, who looked good early on as well, Jesse Mueller, and Demetrius Drelos rounding out the top 10. And as we said last night at Devil's Bowl Speedway, I was Kenny Tremont Jr. coming from 20th to pick up the win over Adam Pearson. David Schilling having a great run in third. Tim LeDuc and two-time winner so far, or one-time winner this year. I guess they swapped back and forth. Josh Sun finishing in fifth last night at the Devil's Bowl Speedway. And again, we're watching times. The 602s were just as fast as the modifieds at Fonda, running about 88 miles an hour on the average, and they're both supposed to be a half mile. It's kind of interesting. And Johnny may have some comments on that too. We'll have to talk to him something because he is a sport of the, yeah. And up at the Ridge, don't forget, as we said, Rocky Warner picking up his first modified win under the Jake Spraker banner, his second overall at the Ridge. And, of course, Bobby Viren, who was there, finishing up in the runner-up spot. So that broke Bobby's win streak, and he's going to be back over with the 00 tomorrow night at the Tribute. Okay, with that said, we're done. We will now go to Johnny Licata, who, I don't know, I guess we'll just call you a super fan, I guess is maybe the best way to put it. But, Johnny, you and your people, whoever they may be, certainly your brother and many others, came up with the idea for the Jack Johnson tribute a couple of seasons ago, which turned into a huge success, and still have chills running down my spine when the jumper got on and said, "Gentlemen, start your engines." But what brought you up to this idea of having a tribute race for CD and Jack over at the Albany Saratoga Speedway?
Well, honestly, I guess it was because of the way the Jumping Jack event ended up at Fonda, which was, and I knew it would be a big success. Nothing because of me. It's Jack Johnson. Who's not going to support Jack Johnson? So it's a pretty easy sell. But because it was so good, I think Lyle really thought, there's a lot of, drivers throughout the years. There were some big name drivers that have ran Albany Saratoga over the years. So he approached me last summer and said, I want to do something next year. Didn't really say what, and I think he thought about it. Then we spoke at the World Finals in Charlotte about doing a combination CD Jack. He felt they were both equally as popular over there, which is basically why it turned into both of them.
Okay.
He didn't want to favor one over the other, even though the Jack Johnson tribute race was done at Fonda. He said he was still, and I agreed 100% that those two guys were, at least when I was growing up in the 80s as a kid, and that those were the two that you focused on mainly in the main events. But anyways, that's how it basically came. Was we talked then, and then we also talked at Super Dirt Week in Oswego about putting it together, and then he called me in the middle of winter when he was really serious and definitely wanted to do it, and said, I want you on board. It's a lot of work. I don't know if I can do it myself, so I need your help to do it. And I said, let me think about it, and I will get back to you within a week or so. And I think it was probably within a day that I called him. It didn't take me long to think about it. Said, you know what? I'd be honored to be part of this for those two legends.
Okay, and so what is the well, I know that you had texted me earlier, Lyle wanted you because you were kind of in charge of it. Like you said, he's got enough on his hands trying to keep two racetracks prepared so they can have great racing every Friday and Saturday night.
Correct.
And you're doing his promotion job for him. So hopefully you're getting paid respectively for that. But anyway, just busting you, Lyle. But anyhow, what's going to be?
Make sure you let Lyle know that.
Yes, well, I think I got a sneaking suspicion he might be listening tonight, but I don't know. What's going to be special about it, other than the fact that we're going to honor two of the greatest guys who ever raced at Albany-Saratoga?
I think there's a few special things. Nothing too crazy. One special thing is CD Cova will be there. The painting that my brother Paul did, and I'm assuming most of the people that listen to your show or listening to us have seen it. But if not, the posters were made from the painting Paul did of CD, which are available to purchase, and CD is going to be signing tomorrow night. So that's quite a special thing to have him there, and you can shake his hand, whatever, have a quick word with him. And then a couple other just the drivers that are going to come out and support it. And I think one of the other special things is the extra bonus money that will be available. And my thing was with the Jack race back at Bond and also this race, any of the sponsorships or money raised, I said, I want to put the money back into the race so the fans end up getting more cars, quality cars, and so on. I said, and I also want to keep the money in the middle of the field. Because 90% of the races, the money's very good to win, and it's good throughout the back. But usually, I always say the only one that goes home happy after a race is the winner. So with that being said, I said I want to give the money to the guys that don't get so much, and they walk out there saying, hey, that was well worth going to that race.
Right.
It was a great atmosphere. Maybe they'll run a little harder. I don't know if anybody can run any harder at Albany-Saratoga the way it's been over there. It's just unbelievable. Every week I sit in the stands and I just cannot believe how hard the guys run there. It's quite a show over there.
Yeah, and there's
probably the best racing going right now.
Yeah, and that's why the place is packed. That's simple as that. The product, that's all. That's what we gotta have.
Yeah.
And
one of the things that I'm very excited about, I have a couple of surprises that I'm not going to say. You'll see tomorrow night. That will be pretty cool. But one of the things that I actually talked Lyle into doing, and only a few drivers know about it so far, but they are all very receptive of it, thought it was a great idea. And what that is after the modifieds will go out and run their hot laps, after the hot laps, when they run their when they run their heat races, we're going to try to take 20 cars out of the heats. The 21st and 22nd car line up in the main event behind the heat race qualifiers. 21st and 22nd are going to be the top two cars that had the quickest time in hot laps that didn't make it in a heat.
Okay.
So that's a way, honestly, that was my, an idea I had because, there's a lot of people coming from far away or whatever, and they want to see whether it's Brett Hearn or Ronnie Johnson or Billy Pouch Jr. or Stuart Friesen. If one of those guys gets wrecked in a heat race, and now they have to start last in the consolation race, there's a chance with the quality of cars at Albany-Saratoga, they may not get into the main. And in the old days, a promoter would throw in some of the good cars. But I think it offends too many people when you do that because you say to your regular, why is this regular not here? He's here every week. You're not going to put him in the race. You're going to put this guy, and so on. It creates controversy.
Right.
This is a way of doing it that's fair to everybody.
Yep.
Because it's just taking the two fastest cars. So if, for example, if Brett Hearn gets wrecked the first lap of a heat race, now we can say, okay, he was the third quickest time in hot laps, for example. The other two guys in front of him are already qualified, so he will now start 21st. He won't even have to run a consi or start 30th or so or behind that. So that was one thing that I really pushed for, and I'm really excited about because it'll lock two fast cars that should be in the race. That may have bad luck or just struggle in a heat race. They may have a good time in hot laps where they're one of the fastest cars, and if they draw, because the heat races are going to be draw for position, if they start last and the track's super fast and they can't pass, and it's like, you know what, I'm still going to start 21st because I had a good practice time.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so that's one of the that's one of the things we're doing. The other thing I think we're going to do, depending on how many cars, but if there is enough cars, there's going to be a scramble, we call it, which will be after the mod consi. We will take the non-qualified cars and put them out there for maybe a 12-lap race or a 16-lap race 16 backward CD or 12 for Jack. That's why the laps.
Yep.
But there'll be a little bit of cash on top of that, too, so they can go out of there with a little bit of money.
Okay, and so you have it set in stone, then you're going to just start, 26, or is there...
We have 30 cars written down on our
30, okay.
Start.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's about as much as you want to get on, because then it starts to running into an issue. Of course, with the quality of drivers you got, you probably couldn't ring them all the way around there and still have a pretty good show.
Everybody seems... Yes, exactly. And everything's subject to change. Nothing's in concrete yet, but that's the format we're going with right now. And there's going to be some of the CD Colville nostalgia cars, or one of the CD Colville, maybe 2 nostalgia cars. A couple Jack Johnson nostalgia cars will be there for people to check out and that. So it's going to be good. I know they're going to plan on doing a few interviews with some of the drivers that have raced with CD. I hear Billy Pouch Sr. is coming with his son, Billy Jr., who will be racing. But they said that they're going to interview Billy Pouch Sr., get a story about CD, whatever. Hopefully it's a good one, not where CD wrecked them or something like that. Maybe it's
no, that doesn't happen. No.
So it's going to be a good night. I think it's going to go really well. There'll be a lot of good memorabilia there, and it's just going to be a fan-friendly event with some unbelievable racing, hopefully.
Okay, and I know that a lot of folks who are on Facebook or on the internet have seen the DKM guys of doing a special tribute on their own. I don't know if you had anything to do with that or not, but it doesn't matter. It's a great...
Well, I did have a very little bit. I called Stuart Friesen back, probably 4 months ago. And I said, hey, are you interested in doing a CD car for the tribute race? And he said, absolutely.
Cool.
And then I didn't really hear much more from it. Then all of a sudden I saw the post from the DKM guys, and I said, awesome, they're taking it. Because it was a point there I said, well, it must be he's not interested anymore because I haven't heard from him.
Yep.
And but they are doing it, and I think that's an awesome tribute. I think it's going to be great for the fans. And I honestly think what better driver could you get to represent CD driving around Albany, Saratoga than Stuart Friesen?
Yeah, pretty similar. Chargers, and as CD was, and obviously it ties right in. I don't know if people remember or not, but they remember that Stuart Friesen had a Jack Johnson tribute car lettered up, so it was only fitting that he would do the same for CD. So it's it's going to be a super deal for the Superman, that's for sure. And and it's going to be. I was kind of hoping. Well, that's me because I'm an old guy, but I was kind of hoping for the old lumber wagon, red and blue one. But they're going to do the white CD that I believe he drove. Well, I don't know. CD, are you there yet?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, there he is here. Okay. The white car that DKM is going to run in your honor tomorrow night, is that the white car that you drove for Hauser?
Right, the Hauser car.
Okay, and we are joined by the man, the legend, the myth, whatever you want to call it. I stole that from George Smith. I won't take credit for it. But CD himself is with us. Johnny is on the other line, Licata, and talking about this big night tomorrow night over at Albany, Saratoga. So we got the cars, and John, I'm sure that, I don't know, you're not you are kind of the promoter, but you already heard from the Pouch clan is going to be there with Junior driving, and Billy's going to come and I'm sure swap some stories with you, Clarence, when he gets there tomorrow night. And
sure.
And also, we got to believe, and I think he said that when he won a couple of weeks ago, Tim McCready coming back. He loves Albany Saratoga's, won the last couple of times there, and Super Matt, who has taken your name now, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. Super Matt Shepard. I understand they both will be there, correct, John? As far as you know.
As far as I know, Matt Shepard will be there.
Yep.
I don't believe Tim McCready's going to be able to make it. I did speak with him last week. He still was unsure, but he thought he had to go to Mississippi for some late model stuff.
Okay.
But he said if there was any way he could make it, he certainly wanted to be here.
Yep.
but he just said he didn't. Last week I spoke to him, he didn't know then if he could. And I know he had a hectic weekend out to Eldora for the dream.
For the dream. Yep.
Yeah. But that.
Okay.
But there's some other guys coming up too. I don't really know. I think all of the drivers that are interested or coming up, I think they reach out to Lyle because they all try to get a complimentary pass.
Right. Yeah.
They don't reach out to me, which is good.
Yeah.
I think they reach out to the high man on the totem pole.
Right.
Which I don't blame them for that. But and just quickly, we have lap sponsors for all of it, and same thing. That money from the laps are actually going to go. The odd laps are actually going to go to the 6th place runner, and the even lap money, whatever was donated, will go to the 12th place runner. So the leader actually won't get any of the lap money. It's going to go to 6th place and 12th place.
Cool. That's great.
So,
and and that's some sizable money. I know you had some laps that were 200 and plus whatever, so that's going to be
correct.
Great for everything. You have them all sold, so you don't need to sell anymore, correct?
Correct. I just got them all sold today with the last one.
Okay.
So the King of Dirt took lap 12, which is at $212.
Okay.
And the lap 61 is from the Dirt Modified Nostalgia Tour, and they took that for $261. So that's $261 bonus for whoever's running 6th on the last lap.
All right.
So and then there's money throughout the whole thing from all our sponsors. They're wonderful that they donated. And as I said before, when you tell them that we're doing a race in honor of C.D. Colville and Jack Johnson, it's an easy sell. I don't really have to talk them into purchasing it. They're more than happy to come up to me and say we want to be involved. So
okay, well,
it makes me look good.
Well, I was late to the party and I wanted to get in on that. So what I'll do now, we'll add this on lap 12. I'll give you another 120, and on lap 16, I'll give you another 160.
Okay.
All right.
We love it. Love it.
All right. Anything other than the fact that while we got Clarence and you on the line here, and like I say, definitely that was my error. I got a chance, but I was away in college for a couple of those great years that CD raced in the area here, so I was kind of out of the loop for 4 or 5 years. So I have a black. I'm not an alcoholic, but I got a black hole there anyway because I wasn't around. So. Johnny, I don't know if you're a stat man or not, but while we're working with this and talking with CD, if we can get a little background and get some numbers on CD himself.
I honestly, I'm not a stat guy.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Some memories, great memories in that, but I will say one thing, and I was talking with CD here a few weeks back when he was up at the sign shop about some of the things. And then there's other drivers too that I've talked to that I've known that are big names and have done a lot in the sport. But they're remembered for certain things that you don't think or necessarily want to be remembered for. And I can tell you right up front that I remember CD winning races left and right everywhere we go. He was always a threat, the guy to beat. But the one thing that stands out to me was him coming out of the pits, turn 1 at Albany Saratoga Speedway, and hitting the track almost as a jump with all 4 tires coming off the ground when he had a pit stop. And I just said, this guy is freaking crazy. He's the most exciting guy here, and you just couldn't help but watch him and fall in love with watching him. So, but it's funny because all the races he won, I don't remember the race he won, but I do remember him coming out of turn 1 wide open, car jumping off there like it was an off-road truck. So it was pretty awesome in the day.
Yep.
It was amazing to watch.
It's odd you say that because, again, I was around during a lot of those years, and I do remember that point, and I also remember, and like you say, things you maybe don't want to be remembered for. Clarence, probably, you know that you've heard this over the years that your CD was crash and destroy, and you came about with some great lines against that because the proof is in the pudding, as you said. You I don't know if you actually kept track of the number of times you came off on the hook, but you guaranteed that you took the checkered flag a lot more times than you went off on the hook. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, the last 2 years I raced, I was never towed in the pits.
2 years. There we go. Yep. And
the last 2 years never was towed in.
Yep.
A couple times I probably should have been, but I managed to get it in the pits.
Yeah, that might have been that one race where
I think it was the one that he's talking about where I come out of the pits. It was like Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah. Was that the one, or was that a different time when you just somebody
and
threw?
I think that was the Budka car I did that with, because I remember Mike saying when we broke a torsion stop during the week at his son's track down there, leading the race, we broke the torsion stop, and he said that was because I come out of the pits like that with the car.
Yep. And then there was wasn't there another time where you had some front end damage and somebody had the smart idea to throw the chain around? Yeah.
They put a chain around the front axle, and I came back in and told them to take another link in the chain because it wasn't handling right.
Yeah, and odd as that seems, now they're going back with late models. They had that kind of the deal on the rear end where they had a chain to keep the droop law or whatever they're doing now with that. So yeah, you guys had implemented with stuff that actually did work. I mean, today's cars probably suffered damage that you guys had, probably would never make it back out on the racetrack again. Anyway, they're so much lighter.
No, they're so fragile. I couldn't believe it when I was down to DKM looking at the car. They one of their cars, the suspension parts are so fragile. It's nothing like it used to be. I just shake my head when I walk around there.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things we want to talk about tonight. It's a difference, as always. And while we're talking about memories, I remember vividly, and I'm sure you do too. I don't know what night it was. One of the nights over at Albany Saratoga when you went for a hike in the woods.
Don't say when I went off the third turn. That's what everybody remembers.
Yes, yeah.
Hey, Ed, let me interrupt for 1 second.
Yes, go ahead, John.
I appreciate you having me on. I
Okay.
just got to get going. I got a bunch of stuff to wrap up tonight for the race tomorrow. And look forward to the race tomorrow, and hopefully everybody comes out. Weather looks beautiful, and
oh yeah,
we'll see you tomorrow night.
You're going to hit a home run again, that's for sure.
Yes,
you got
to be a great night.
You got to work on who's going to be our next tribute, because you guys are on a roll here.
Yeah, we'll get through this one first before we go down that road.
Right. Okay,
But
thanks a lot,
John.
John.
Having me on.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Yeah, Johnny, of course, like I said, a super fan who just loves to bring back some old memories. We're talking about the Superman, the original Superman. Let's hit on that first off. As we said, Matt Shepard now, who is well, he's still a young kid to me and to you too, CD, but is really tearing things up. 40-some wins last year, whatever, and he's got 16 already this season. So looks like he's headed for. They call him Super Matt now, and he said one of his friends gave him that. How did you end up with that? Everybody, us old timers call you the original Superman. Where did that name come from?
I don't know. It was a long ways back. We had a skunk for a mascot, and somehow there was some product that got rid of the smell of a skunk.
Okay.
And the name of it was Super CD.
Okay. Okay.
So, that's how I think it originally started, and then it, turned into the Superman and all that.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Well, that is the first time I've heard that one. Okay, that's okay. We got that put out to say. With that said, and like I said, John is not a stats guy. I'm not a stats guy, and I know when you were racing, you weren't a stats guy either.
I'm not either.
You just went one place to the other. But one of the things that I remember going back to the day was the. I don't know if you were the first. Obviously, Jack and some other guys were traveling around the Super Dirt Series and heading down Pennsylvania, New Jersey. But that was actually before that. All that time was going on too. That
late 70s.
Yeah, you were one of the first that made the trip down to Reading, PA. And for those of you young fans out there that never heard of Reading, in its day, which was quite a while ago, and also it was a long time, probably the place for the best of the best back in the 60s, 70s, 50s, even going back in the 50s. What made you guys decide to take the trip? Obviously, they ran, back in the day, 2 nights a week, if you can believe it, Friday and Sundays.
Yeah, they ran Friday and Sunday.
Yep.
I was going down. I started out going down in March when they opened up, and we raced down there until the tracks around here opened.
Mm-hmm.
And Lindy Vicari told me near the end of the last year they ran, they were only going to run a limited, a couple 6 races or something because they sold the fairgrounds.
Right.
And he told me that I was the most successful New York State driver that ever raced there. Not meaning because Buzzy Runeman and
yep.
the guys Gary Ballou, Bobby Botcher, guys like that, they weren't really. They were more Jersey-oriented drivers, not New York drivers.
Right.
But I was one of the few that went down from up here.
Yeah,
The first time I went there, Marty Israel, the guy in charge of Goodyear, and we were to get some tires, and he goes, "Aren't you the guy that's beating Lazaro at Fonda?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying." And I ended up picking up a Goodyear tire deal by racing down there.
Cool. Yep. And what was it about Reading that obviously the track had been there a long time, and it started with the bugs and the midgets and all that made that, like I said, the place where most guys didn't even want to go there because they knew they were going to get their hands handed to them in a basket. You guys went down and, like you said, were very successful. But I think a lot of guys are just, afraid of the competition. What made those guys better than, say, the guys up in New York?
Well, they started out. They were the first ones to run the tubular chassis.
Yep.
They were a little bit ahead, and they ran huge motors, fuel injection, drag tires. Where I made out down there was it was at the point where they were switching over like a mix of the drag tires and the lower tires like we ran. And Goodyear had some good tires that would work there, and they wanted me to run them against the drag tires, and, it worked out for me and them. But it was very tough, the competition. Those guys, most of them raced 4 or 5 nights a week.
Yep.
A lot of them ran sprint cars, midgets. The track was just, it was like Fonda. Fonda is the remaining of that breed. It was Flemington, Reading, Nazareth, Fonda. And Fonda's the only one left running. It's a shame we can't get a good field of cars in there to run every Saturday night. And, it's just a different track. It's a track of champions. It's more or less flat out all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
I was amazed when I came. I've been away for so many years. It's just then being on the outside of the third and fourth turn, you really, can feel the speed that's generated. Makes me feel bad, really.
Have you? So there is a difference between obviously they took the graveyard out of the third turn, many years ago. I don't think you raced. Did you race?
I raced there.
Yep.
I made it into it one night.
Oh.
Pep Pepicelli said to me one night, he goes, "How deep do you go into the third turn at Fonda?" I said, "Until it gets expensive."
Yeah.
From that point on, he never really raced into the third turn with me.
Yeah. And obviously, that was a change. But now that you're out there every Saturday night going around with the pace car, obviously not quite at racing speed, but you can get up there pretty good. Do you see any changes? I mean, certainly there's been several promoters since you raced there. They've done, they put different things on the track. We've had a couple of floods. But does the track kind of look and feel the same to you as it did back in the day?
It's so hard to tell because with the big tires, with the pace car, it's like driving around the track full of potholes.
Okay. Yep.
It's because the tires are so small in diameter and narrow.
Yep.
And with the pace car, it has a real low-profile tire, which makes it even worse.
Right.
Saturday night when I went out there and was messing around with that nostalgia car, Eric Mack was riding with me, and he did a little quick short video. We didn't think of it, or we would have done the whole thing. But you can almost see the shaking in the camera. But all the tracks are like that. I've been around a couple of them in a car or a push truck or something.
Right.
And it's just the way they are. When you're racing it, you can't even tell it's smooth.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would make some sense. And that is another big change. Like you just said, the big tires, like they had it at Reading and certainly around here. And that drag rubber went away. I guess Glenn Donnelly kind of got that rule passed.
He pushed it out. I don't know why. I guess that was probably the beginning of the promoters taking over command of what they ran and how they ran it, and trying to get everybody a little closer together, like NASCAR is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're still doing that. Obviously, you guys were you and your team. Did you have a crew that pretty much stayed with you your whole entire career? That seems to be the key to most successes.
There were some guys that stuck around most of the time. They went in and out. Bob Mortensen, he was always with me. He was with me all the time, but he didn't travel with us because he had he was an electrician, and he had his own company.
Yep.
His son's racing now. And there was, I don't even want to start naming names.
Right. Yeah. Forget somebody.
You get guys. They know who they were. And, that was the biggest shock I had when I started going to Fonda. And I asked Eric one day, I said, Jesus, I said, we used to come here and we always had 20 or 30 guys with us. You just can't, I can't imagine, there's 2 or 3 guys working on a car now where there was, in my case, when we went to Reading and that, we had 4 or 5 carloads of people just wanting to go down and help out.
Right.
It's changed so much. I guess it's just that the economy and these guys that could travel in that, they all, they get married and they got to work and they can't be getting home at 2:00 in the morning. I had guys that worked third shift at GE. They would come home Friday. They'd take a quick nap in the morning, and they'd be up until Monday, when they went back to work. Sunday night at midnight, they got to rest when they went back to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's amazing how
that's the biggest complaint I hear.
That part of it.
Yeah, that's the biggest complaint I hear now is the guys saying it's tough to get, people, bodies there. That it's a lot of work if you're going to do it and be competitive, and there's just people just aren't willing to spend the time anymore. And
I was talking with Charlie Schofield, the one that's got my replica car that was there Saturday night.
Yep.
And he actually used to live near one of the garages I had in the early 80s. And I said to him, because he was unloading the car, he was all by himself. And he says, "You're doing this by yourself?" Well, I got a couple of guys that straggle along and they'll help out. And the group helps them. And I says, "Remember when you used to come over to my garage?" He goes, "Yeah, it was unbelievable. 20, 30 guys there all the time."
Yep.
When I first started, Dave Hunt and myself built a couple cars together. We built a car for Joe Johnson. We built Dave's car. I built, one of my cars. And 10, 11 o'clock at night, we would have to say we were going home. And we'd go down to the restaurant and get a coffee so everybody would leave so we could really, get something done. It's so many people.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I've had guys complain over the years, not lately, but that it was. You have the guys that after you win, they show up the next week or two, and then if you don't win, they kind of go away and wait till you win again, then they come back. So, but it seemed like you had more of the guys.
And I had other drivers that used to. Nicky Ryan and his group used to help us. My son-in-law Chuck Spetla, he was with Jeff Shealy,
Mm-hmm.
with me, and Jeff used to help us with Syracuse. It's just like I said. I don't want to start naming names because there's so many of them. I'd like to thank the Academy, one of them.
Yeah, right. That's for sure.
When the music starts playing, and they shuffle you off the stage. One more. I got one more.
Right. I'd see the. Maybe it's just because I knew some of the people around you back in those days, but I think you were one of the first. Now everybody does it. Now we got cameras in the cars that tape, every week. But one of the first guys that used to have somebody shoot, I guess we call them home movies at that point, of the races and use that to get better. You said a lot of...
Yeah, we did that, and we tried so many times to get something in the car, but the vibration in the car would keep shutting the cameras off. And just the other day I was telling my wife how it's a shame that they didn't have the equipment back then that they have now. We would have had a good library, but all that VHS stuff just falls apart, deteriorates.
And I think if I'm correct that you had back in the day when I think I asked asked you that question years ago, why do that? And I think if I'm right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you said because when you watch the film, the car is actually doing something different than you feel while you're driving the car. So it really does give you a different perspective.
Right. Another thing, you have proof of where you were. You have an alibi when something happens on the track.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, you got the bad rap if it was the crash and destroy, which, like you said, the last 2 years you never went off on the hook. But certainly in the beginning years, everybody, I don't care what, Jack Johnson said he knocked down every wall of Honda his first couple of years before he, or while he was learning.
And how's it go? You hit everything but the pace car.
Right, right. You're in the pace car now, so you better watch out.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. I can't believe the way they don't keep up. I keep telling them it's a pace car. It's supposed to set the pace. It's
right.
Like, Rick Lucia rode with me the first couple of weeks. And the first night we got going, and they kept falling back. And so I said, we'd come off the track, and we'd be all the way down by the first turn in park, and they'd go racing by. So one time we were coming down the back stretch, and I said to Rick, I says, the hell with it. Let's stay out. I bet you we can go a lap before they pass.
Yeah. Yeah.
First thing he said when he got in the car is, where's the seatbelt?
Right.
Rick, you don't need the seatbelt. Yeah, the thing will ding. We have to wear the seatbelt.
Oh, yeah. But now, getting back a little bit to you and Jack, I guess the real truth, I think, obviously you came, that's the legend and the truth is you ruined a couple of Jack's winning streaks. The one at Fonda there, he's going to try to win more than Steve Danish in a row and whatever, and you came back and broke that. But as a driver and I think you both had a lot of respect for each other, and I don't, certainly the tracks did, and you were always, usually the bad guy, I guess, and that was fine. I think that's what we need more in the sport today, is a little bit more of the rivalry that, like you and Jack had and others. But really, you guys didn't dislike each other, did you?
No, Jack and I got along good. I used
Yep.
to, go to his garage. He'd stop at my garage.
Yep.
Ronnie, we went to Florida one year. Ronnie used to ride to the racetrack at night with us, the back of my Suburban with my son, not even ride with Jack.
Yeah.
Jack trusts his kid to ride with me.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we joked around. One time I was at his garage, I think, when he was on Broad Street, and that song came on, Will It Go Round in Circles? Or no, that was a different time. it was You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet came on. At the same time, Jack and I both said, I'm going to put that on my car.
Okay.
At the same exact time, we said the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I say you certainly did have some great races together, you and Jack, and you and others as well. But so what was that brought that whole deal around? Now, like I said, you probably would have had more wins at Fonda if you'd had stayed there as a regular right on through. But
I kept leaving.
Yeah.
I kept leaving because management, and I would go, and I'd go down. When I didn't run there, I tried Lebanon a little bit, but I just didn't click down there. I don't know. My heart wasn't in it.
Right.
And we went to Middletown. I was successful down there. I left Albany, Saratoga one time when the New York State Stock Car Association said they were going to strike. Oh, we're going to strike Friday night. I said, will you let me know if you're going to strike? And I'm not going to tow my car up there and sit in the parking lot. I'm going to go race. And we actually left. They called me in the morning. Yep, we're going to strike.
Mm-hmm.
So I left and went to Reading. Here I picked the toughest track in the country to go to.
Yep.
And at the time, I was winning, my share of the races at Malta, and it was 20 minutes from my house. Towed the car 3.5 hours to run against the best there was.
Right.
I get down there, and then they call from home and tell. Well, we called home. We didn't have cell phones back then.
Right.
And they said, "Oh, they raced at Malta." But when I left, I didn't go because it was easy. I left one year. I ran Ryan's car. I raced Granby, Quebec on Friday night. I ran Plattsburgh. It was '88. I ran Plattsburgh on Saturday night and Nazareth on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't afraid to travel. And again, I had a full crew when I went there.
Yep. And
except for Friday nights when we went to Canada, it was me and Ricky Vile, and we picked up a couple of stragglers for that one, but that didn't stop us.
Yeah, it was. I think that was again. I can't remember, but
that was '88.
Right, you were there.
I won every race in Plattsburgh that year.
Yeah.
I had a 311 racing against the 358s. But to be honest, the 311 was a lot more motor than those 358s were. It just happened to fall into the rules were just right that made that motor legal, but it was a very, very strong motor. It was actually built by Raymond Beadle.
Mm-hmm.
Barkham had it built for the NASCAR sportsman car that Swindell drove for him. So the motor was actually built to run Talladega.
Yeah, and they're
very potent motor.
Yeah,
I ran with the modifieds the night before in Canada, and then I went down and ran Plattsburgh with the 358s.
Yep. So that wasn't actually that wasn't the year then. If you won all those races that you came down and broke Jack's streak there.
No, I don't remember. I'm not.
Okay.
But
I was thinking you were
Middletown.
Okay.
No, I think I was running Middletown at that time.
Okay. All right. Yep. Then so you won. Well, I did quick this morning. Just fan back through the Fonda books. You did win back to back actually in 80. God, now I forget. 81, 82, I think the Super Dirt Series events, the 100 lappers.
Yeah.
Those 2 years. So you did win, Super Dirt Series events. I don't know. Did you ever travel the series, for a whole season?
Yeah, I did travel the series pretty much, but it was a struggle. I finished up in the top 5 most of the time, but Weedsport. I represented Weedsport at Syracuse 4 or 5 times. I hated that track, and I kept winning their Syracuse qualifiers.
Yep. Well, tomorrow night, then you'll have to give Brett Hearn some pointers, because I was joking with Brett this morning there. We were setting up our interview with him later on tonight. about, or no, I guess it was over Malta on Friday. Yeah, he hasn't had very good luck. I think he's won one feature in all these years at Weed Sport. Just for whatever reason, now he's won, 100 over at Malta, which you would think they're both small tracks, and if you could run great at one, you should be able to run great at the other. Just for whatever reason. Did you ever have a track or two like that you just could not get wins at?
Lebanon.
Okay, yeah.
I struggled there. Actually, my wife just passed me a note. The time I stopped Jack's win streak, I was running Lebanon.
Okay.
Hauser car.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I left Fonda so many times.
Okay.
I can't remember,
Yeah.
what was what.
Johnny off,
Yes.
and you're on the bet?
No.
Not yet?
CD.
It'll be interesting
you're on
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Here, let's
Yeah.
Billy Pouch and myself had some battles.
let's fix him. So he's in
They brought me in. I ran Flemington in '89,
better.
and I got some wins down there with the Romeo car, which was another real good car. Again, I don't want to start naming names.
Right.
Uh,
Now, who was I forget myself? Who was your owner for the Flemington car?
Jimmy Romeo.
Okay, that's right. Yep. Now it comes back. Yep. The 44.
It was a blue 44.
Yep. Now it's coming to me here. And Flemington's another one that
It would have been easy for DKM to copy the car if they used my car I had in '89. That was a blue 44.
Yeah, right. That's right. You're right. Yeah, and it was almost the same
But
blue.
Eric really liked that Hauser car.
Okay. I figured there had to be a
One day he said nobody had nothing for that car.
Yeah, that's
It was
true.
a pretty awesome car. I wrecked that at Fonda.
Now,
That was a strong running car.
did you have any preferences as far as? I mean, obviously you were in that area where they started, like you said, down at Reading, the tube cars. Tobias, obviously the first to come out with those built cars, and then Olson and Troyer and all those added in. Did you have a favorite of the builders that you like to race, or didn't it really matter much?
It didn't really matter much. I tried them all, the show cars, the
Yep.
Olsons, Troyers. We even had a Kegel car. The car I went in the woods at Malta with was a brand new Kegel car
Okay.
that had about 20 miles on it.
Yep. And again, we don't like to bring up old or bad things that we talk about. What I can't.
Yes, you do.
I can I can remember seeing you going through. I mean, you were off the ground. I don't know how high. People want to say 20, 30 feet, whatever it was, but you were flying. What really caused that? Did you jump a wheel, or I can't remember, but
At Malta,
yeah.
I think I jumped Freddie Breitbill's right rear.
Okay. Yep.
I was in a big hurry. It was like the first lap of the race.
Yep.
I could never wait.
Yeah. Well, today actually you fit right in with today's because that seems to be the deal. In fact, Brett mentioned that Friday night with Malta with the quality field they have there and starting. Well, actually, that was the closest he started to the front all year. In 10th, he says you got to get to the front first fast here, or else you're going to end up third or fourth or whatever, which he's been doing right along all this year. But so basically, it was hammered down from the drop of the green, which I think probably we see more of that now because everybody's so much equal. Nobody can, well, except with the Shepherd kid, the years of the 40, 30 wins or whatever. I don't know. Do you remember what your best year was as far as wins go?
No, I think I was averaging like 25 a year when I was winning.
Yep. Which, back in that day was pretty damn good as far as that part goes, because there was only
we'd run like 100 races, so it's like 1 out of 4 you win.
Right. It's pretty much what our
seconds and thirds and fourths.
Yep.
They all paid good money.
Yep. Yeah, that seems to be the other big change over the years is that the money. Yeah, we're talking about you guys winning races. I mean, we're talking, 30, 40 years ago. You guys were winning races that paid at least 1,000, sometimes, more than that.
Yeah, the races back then paid really good considering today's purses.
Right. Yeah, compared to what it costs to go. And like you say, traveling, it's got so expensive. I don't know. I can't remember.
I can remember going to races down in Jersey and that Bridgeport and that Run With Your Brung, races like that. You'd get there and you'd almost have to win a heat race to get in the feature.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like a downscale, the Chili Bowl's an extreme.
Right,
but
right.
It was the same process. You had to really run Flemington. When I raced there in '89, you had to almost burn off 3 tires to qualify in the heat race. You couldn't. You had to go with the softest tire that would hold up,
mm-hmm.
and because the competition was just so tough.
Yeah, and the track itself. Well, we talked about Reading, which, like you said, it was kind of similar to Fonda. I guess maybe that's why you did so well down there. But Flemington was a kind of a unique deal where that was pretty much hardly any straightaways and all circle, and that's what they actually ended up calling it, the Big Circle. But that just had to be, like I said, I've never raced a full race. Go-karts is where I jumped off, but
yeah,
it's got to be.
Well,
Flemington had to be one of the most fun tracks to race.
That was actually square, that track.
Or square, yes, yeah.
They nicknamed it the Square.
The Square, yep.
That 4 straights and 4 corners. It was Jack ran awesome there. Jack won a lot of races there. It was a tough track, but I don't know. It was just something Jack and I think because of running Fonda so much, they were so much alike.
Mm-hmm.
Flemington, you'd set the car and you just go in a big circle.
Yeah.
People in the stands would come in. They'd have helmets on and goggles, and because everything was being kicked up into the grandstands, because the car was the back of the car. If the race started, you turned right. You just kept going left. It was one big circle.
Right, and
one of the fastest tracks around. It was like a 5/8 mile track, and they're running 14-second laps.
Yeah, back in those days with a lot smaller motors than what they got now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, motors back then were $15,000, $20,000. Near the end there when I stopped. When I first started winning races, I actually built the motor myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, but now they're paying, I guess, $50,000 for a motor.
Yep, some are. Yeah.
Yeah, those Billy the Kid motors and like that.
Yep. I mean, they're awesome motors. There's no question about it. Everybody I talked to, that has one says, well, you got to have one if you want to win. That's for sure. But they're still paying $2,000, $2,500 to win at the better tracks like Fonda, and that's still it just goes to prove what we've said. And even Jake Spraker, who was proud to say you were the first car owner or the car driver.
I was his first driver.
Yes, his first driver.
It's all my fault.
Yes.
I didn't have a car, so he went out and bought Sederly's car.
Right.
No, I have a lot of respect for Jake. Him and I joke around all the time.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, it's amazing. He's still doing it, and it's costing him a hell of a lot more. I don't know if he's having any more fun. Probably not, but we need guys.
He appears to be having fun.
Yeah, we need to have more guys like that. That's for sure. But they're few and far between. So you got to the point where like Jack said, the first. Well, Jack was lucky. I guess maybe because he had his. His dad was in the business of racing or whatever, and people knew them. But Jack said he never really owned much of his stuff at all ever. He started right out, like you said, he used to, beat up on Tony Villano's stuff, and then went on and
I drove for Tony a little bit too. Tony was tough.
Yep.
Tony wanted to reuse everything.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't throw that away. Don't throw that away. We can recap it. We can recondition it.
Right.
But Jack got what he could out of it.
Yep. And but I'm saying, and you were kind of on the same vein. And I know our another one of our old friends, and God, it's hard to believe that they're all gone now. Kenny Shoemaker said that that was the smartest thing he ever did. He never, other than the car that he and Corey bought, I guess originally to start racing with when they were kids, he never owned much of anything, and he said that's why I stayed in it so long, I guess. Cause,
I started, but the problem is now my son tried it, my grandson.
Yes.
It's just too expensive, and they remember the times with the sponsors and running up front and all that, and you can't just walk into the sport like that,
right?
Unless you got a real rich family that wants to spend a lot of money.
Yep.
And but you can't do it like you can't do it on your own. In order to get a good ride, you got to have experience. In order to get experience, you got to go broke trying to get it.
Right. Yeah.
I just happened to come in at the right time where you could do it on I don't want to say a budget, because I didn't have a budget when I first started.
Right.
And you just did what you had to do to get back there to the next race and run a little harder. And, before I won a race, I thought if I had a little more motor, I could have won tonight. And I'm like, who am I kidding? I could have had 2 motors and I couldn't have won.
Right. And I think, I'm not sure, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I know he's I think he's listening tonight, but I think Jake had said about you, and certainly about some other driver, not Jake, but I mean other drivers I've heard about, that you were better off if you had something that was underpowered, because if you had more power, you ended up getting yourself in trouble. So you were.
I think that helped me not having a lot of power, because I always tried to go in a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go in deeper, come out harder.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's always worked. It's always worked. But
sometimes it didn't. Sometimes it didn't.
Yeah.
But I had to run really hard, and I crashed a lot. And then Jerry Barnowski, he started sponsoring me, and he more or less took over completely. And bless his heart.
Yes. Yes.
He's probably one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. And again, I don't want to start with names, because
right.
there was a lot of them that helped me.
Well, that's what I say. Jerry certainly, and Jake obviously, one of the first, and then Jerry, and of course the Barkham car, of course, which let's again, I guess I am bringing up bad stuff, but Syracuse.
Once I drove Barkham's cars, I would not. I actually owned my car while I was driving for him.
Okay.
And I drove his car, and I had my own car. And once I drove his car, I said, that's it. I sold my car to him.
Mm-hmm.
I was never going to, I didn't realize that people spent money like that. And I was trying to, I drove a Grant King car for Frank Cozy's father one time at Flemington, because Frank didn't qualify for the 200 and I was qualified.
Yep.
And he said, well, you're a guaranteed starter. You drive Frank's car? And I said, yeah. He goes, when the first yellow is probably going to be a red, have a tow truck tow you in, and we'll switch drivers.
Okay.
So I went out with his car, and I couldn't believe how nice those cars drove. They drove like Cadillacs. You
yep.
stepped on the gas, they went.
Yep.
Stepped on the brake, they stopped.
Yep.
Turned the wheel, they turned.
Yep.
I mean, it was, it was discouraging to know that this is what I'm racing. I drove Carl Collis's Grant King car at Nazareth one time. Same thing. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable.
Yep.
It ruins you. It it beats you down. You know, you'd get depressed. You're like,
Right.
how am I going to compete against this?
Right. Yeah. Well.
But then Hauser spent
Yep.
a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
You had to spend money near the end to, and I don't want to say to make money because it's something that car owners don't do.
No. That's that went away a long time. I mean, obviously going back, actually before your day. Well, even maybe when you started the first, 10 to 12 years of your career, you could actually make money racing.
Yeah, the driver can make money.
Yeah.
Because you get a percentage of
Right.
what you make.
Yep.
But you get your money and you walk away, and you go back the next day and you blow the motor. You don't have to come give the owner some of the money.
Right.
Because you broke the motor.
Yep.
He writes another check. I guess at that time was $25,000 or so.
Yep.
For a motor. One night at Middletown, I remember dumping the putter all over the front stretch.
Yep.
Down there, and I come in, and Hauser had a guy in the truck heading back out to Ohio to get another Hutter.
Yeah. Well, that's
right. A lot of people pushed me forward, and I just wish I could make a list, and it would take me an hour to read off the list of people that helped. I just know they all know who they are.
Yeah. And
I mentioned a couple I probably shouldn't have because it's not fair to the others, but it wasn't because they did any more than somebody else. It was just that it was a name to represent what was going on at the time.
Right. No, and I say it certainly was the golden age. Maybe not, like you say, the last couple of years, it was getting more and more expensive. I mean, now, we've gone to this point. And so we've been here before where, guys are talking now that, my God, the big blocks are dead. Nobody can afford to race them anymore. And now they want to go back to the W16s. Actually, you were still racing, I believe, when C.J. Richards said, okay, we're going to small blocks. And everybody, in fact, I know Jack did. I don't know if you did, basically boycotted the place for the first year or so, and then eventually you all came back. But I don't think we're going through anything different now than it was 30, 40 years ago. It's just cycled around again.
Yeah, it's just the same story, And C.J. Richards did a hell of a lot for the sport.
Yep.
He pissed a lot of people off.
Sure.
Me especially, many times.
Right.
I tore the rule book up on the front stretch one day.
Mm-hmm.
He actually, when I drove that 69 car, I don't know, most people know it, but he actually owned that car.
Okay, yep.
And he would still set me down and put me a lap down in the pits for stopping on the track or something.
Right.
I didn't have a car, and he says, well, you put asses in the seats. So he owned the car. He we ran the show, and he definitely showed no favoritism. One night at Devil's Bowl, I was leading. I got a flat. I stopped on the track. They threw the yellow. I went in the pits. I went to come back out of the pits, and Bruce stood in front of the car and wouldn't let me go back out on the track until I was a lap down because I brought out the yellow.
Mm-hmm.
No, he didn't do no favoritism.
No.
There was a night that Towns beat me, and his car was too loud, and I don't think it was anything to do with me winning or, it just, CJ didn't care. It was the way things were. One night at Devil's Ball, he took us all in the pits when they were doing that, boycotting the races, and
right.
We had a deal going at Plattsburgh where they were going to boycott it, and it rained. He canceled the show. The next day at Devil's Bowl, he said, it's my sandbox, and you're going to play my way, or you're going to play somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true.
Yes. Oh.
He made the rules. It's
Yep.
like NASCAR.
Yep.
NASCAR makes all these rules. NASCAR, if you show more than enough to win the turkey, they they penalize you. They take your car and they see what makes you go a little faster, and they, put a bigger spoiler on it or
Yep.
a smaller restrictor plate, or they want to bottle everybody up because that's what people pay to. They want to see the action.
Yeah.
They don't go home most of the time and say what a great race it was. They says, "Oh, did you see Koval flip out of the ballpark? It was great."
Right. Yeah. And I got a couple of people on Facebook here popping in with different things. David Peak, of course, who was Harry's son.
Yeah, I know David.
David wanted me to remind everyone, and I don't know if he wanted to wait till Brett was on or not, but the time that you presented Brett with a Coca-Cola in Victory Lane when Brett was
Yeah, it was
racing.
that Fonda. I won and he was second. And I think I think I actually had a picture of that one. I think Maynard Ferret was in on that too.
Okay.
And on the victory there on checkerboard after the race, everybody was hot and beat to death, and somebody gave me a Coke and said, "Here, give this to Hearn." He went over to take a drink, and he reached down, put it up, and saw it was a Coke,
Yep.
and threw it down.
Oh.
We went, when I raced Middletown, we went to Coca-Cola to try and get them to sponsor the car because we were giving Hearn,
Right.
his a run for his money, and Coca-Cola actually told me that they didn't need to sponsor it because him being sponsored by Pepsi was more than they needed for advertisement. People started drinking Coke.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't.
Will Cagle told me that when they stop booing you, you got to get a job.
Yeah, right.
They hate a winner.
Yeah. And another guy wrote in and said something about just about what you were talking about. He says nothing was more fun than watching a tow truck chase you around the track, trying to tow you off the track.
If it moved, I was driving it in.
Right. Yeah.
My wife just gave me another note that I should remind you that the only reason I'm out of racing is because of my heart.
Yes.
And when I first came about, nobody believed I had a heart.
Right.
So it was kind of tough on that side.
Yeah. Well, Howie kind of went through that here a year or so ago. I know he had some heart issues, and everybody, kind of made the same comment. But yeah.
Yeah, it's the blood thinners that are the problem. That's
right.
why I can't even, like Charlie Schofield started. He goes, "Why don't you take the car out? They love it." And I can't take a chance.
Right.
Things break, and I can't hit my head.
Right.
Even my cardiologist said if I insist on racing, just don't wear a helmet because it won't matter. If you bump your head with a helmet, it's,
Okay. Right.
You're in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's
So
now. How many years has that been, CD? When you had to?
Since I haven't raced.
Yeah.
96 was the last year I raced.
96. Wow. No, we're looking at 20 years now, almost. Yep.
Yeah, it was a culture shock when I come back in there to Honda, and I do have to mention that I appreciate Pete Dimitrazic bringing me in on this. It's been a game changer. It really, I was starting to get bored.
Right. Yep.
And trying, not trying to stay away, but I didn't go that much. And then since I've been back, I enjoy it. Just wish more of the old timers were there. I walk around the pits and I can't think of it. Edits from up north, up near exit 26. Wilbur.
Mueller, Jesse Mueller.
Yeah, Mueller.
Yes.
Now the kid never saw me race, and little Joe Mulvaney come over to me and says, "You gotta meet Mueller."
Yep.
So he drags me over there. Well, he dragged me. I ran over with him, walked over with him. And if you know Joe, he's bouncing up and down, all excited.
Mm-hmm.
And Mueller gets out of the car and he goes, "Super CD." Now the kid never saw me race. He probably, how old is he?
Yeah, he.
23.
Yes. Right
You know
around.
what I mean,
Yep.
the But his father loved me. His father, his father talked and talked and talked about it, and I think the kid actually believed he saw me race.
Right. Yeah. Well, I say that's the lasting effect that guys like you have had on a lot of us as far as that part goes, and it's great that that Lyle and Paulie and all these guys are getting together and DKM and trying to.
They put a lot of effort in.
Yep.
Licata put a ton of effort into this. He kept after me. You got to come up. We got to get some stuff done. We got to figure this out. You got to come up. Yeah, I'll be up. I'll be up tomorrow. Yep, I'll be up tomorrow. I'll be up tomorrow. Finally, I got up there. They did a heck of a job on the trophy. Do you see the trophy?
I missed that. Somebody, about 10 people in the pits.
It's on Facebook. There's
okay.
A link on my. The trophy's absolutely awesome.
Yep.
It's the way trophies should be. They should have some meaning.
Yeah, especially
a face
right.
behind it. I won over 200 races. I don't have one trophy. I used to give them away.
Right. Oh yeah.
Somebody on the crew be their birthday or their kid's birthday, and you give a trophy right off. Matt Swataka. It was his birthday. He was only a little guy, probably 8 years old or so, if that. His father used to drive our tractor trailer, and it was his birthday, and he was down by where you come into the infield from the stands after the feature, and he was standing there, and I won the race, and I took the trophy and walked right across and handed it to him. Now I know the kid thought more of that than if you gave him $1 million.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no. Brett, have you joined us yet?
I know what it was like.
Yeah. Brett, are you out there yet?
He won't admit it if he is.
No. No, he will. Yeah, in fact, I forgot to remind him anyway, but I'm sure he will be with us in a moment.
Well, the worst part of these guys that are winning and winning and winning, it's a sport that you can't win forever. At some point in time, you're going to win a feature, and it's going to be the last feature you ever win.
Mm-hmm.
And you won't know.
Right.
You know, your last one could have been your last one.
Yep.
It just stops clicking. It stops happening. These kids come in with no fear. Like NASCAR, they run every lap like it's the last lap. Ed was saying that back in the day, they'd run a 500-mile race. They'd ride around for 400 miles.
Right.
And then race the last 100.
Yep.
Now they race they race every lap like it's the last lap.
Yep. Oh, and
it should be a good show tomorrow night.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Appreciate everybody's help and effort that they put into it, and I really appreciate everybody that ever helped me. I know I didn't say it enough. And
well, when you're in the moment,
hopefully I'll see them.
Yeah. Well, when you're in the moment, it's certainly, there certainly was, like I said, the rivalry that you and Jack had was, basically on the track and, made up by the promoters, which is, that's how we get fannies in the seats. And I think maybe that's
everybody. Yeah. When I was driving the motor coach, people would say, "Oh, I watched you race." I go, "Yeah, were you my fan or the Jack Johnson fan?"
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
you were my boy, but my wife liked Jack.
Yep.
Another guy gets on the bus and he says, "I know who you are," and I says, "And you still got on the bus?"
Yeah. Right.
He goes, "I watched you try to kill yourself for 20 years."
Yeah. Well,
he got on the bus.
Yeah. I had
Mike Romano's mother used to go on trips with me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and
all the time.
Yeah, I used to. I was. I gotta admit, I was a Jack Johnson fan back in the day, and I really wanted to like you because actually Steve Danish was my favorite driver to start with, and when you took his number, that made me happy that somebody had it, but it still wasn't Steve, and but I got to as I got older and realized the real situation there that really had a lot of respect for you and your talent, and also your showmanship. You like you said, you put fannies in the seats, and that's kind of what we need a few more of, nowadays. That's for sure.
Well, they all try their best.
Yeah. And it's every perfect world. Everybody, nobody wants. We talked to Jimmy King about this years back about how tough it was to announce some of the races now because everybody needs sponsors to keep racing. So nobody wants to be a bad guy because the sponsors don't want to be the guy that's putting the black horse out there.
Well, Jim King was in his. I know a lot of people didn't like him. Well, I don't want to say a lot, but every time I'll be talking with somebody and say about Jim King was the best at this and that. And,
yep.
A lot of them said no. He was fresh. He had priorities. He took one driver's side and this and that. But Jim King, he's the way an announcer should be. He could make a race out of the pace car and the water truck.
Right.
If he had to.
Yep.
The whole time.
Yep.
He was always on.
Yep.
I know he liked me. I was easy for him to announce because he knew there would always be something going on. If
right.
things got boring, he would focus in on me, and eventually I'd screw something up.
Yeah.
But I traveled and I got experience, and I'd probably still be out there. At this point, probably have already reached my last win, but not knew it and just kept going.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I say there's something to be said for both of those. We've seen it happen. Obviously, Jack left the sport not of his own fruition as well, kind of similar to you with medical issues.
Yeah.
But Lou Lazaro, raced right on through until he actually passed away at the racetrack, and really wasn't competitive the last couple of seasons. So you hate to see that happen as well. So I don't know which is the best. I guess there's no easy way to retire, but I don't know.
Well, memories and the memories change.
Absolutely. Yep.
They always seem better as it gets older.
Yeah, that's
Just
true.
Imagine someday these will be the good old days.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I say. We're talking about Stuart Friesen now, and he's got 42 wins at Fonda. He's only been racing, basically 5 years there or something like that. His win percentage is amazing, and not that he probably never will come back full time to Fonda. Maybe he will when he gets done with NASCAR. But you also have the Bobby Varon, who now sits behind. He's ahead of you now and still racing. So
yeah. Varon's good. Varon's aggressive.
Yeah. Okay, we got
the job done.
Actually, we got a caller on the line. Is somebody want to talk to CD?
Uh-oh.
Hello.
Hello.
No, maybe that. Yeah, I don't know. It says it's an Albany number. Maybe you just listed it in. I don't know. Is a caller? Are you out there? Hello. I guess not. Okay. He's there, just hanging out there. But anyhow, no, it's always great. We had a couple other comments there, of course. Again, going to the negative side about you going out of Lebanon Valley. That I saw pictures of. I was not there for that night, but that was exciting, to say the least.
I was running good that night. Yep. I don't know. It just, it's like, seemed like Tremont and myself, we just more than once tried to occupy the same spot.
Right.
And Syracuse, I was leading the race in Syracuse, and he was running around the bottom trying to finish the race, which, nothing against that.
Right.
But me and Alan were running first and second, and got in that he got into me, I got into him, whatever. Somehow me and Tremont got together, and I got a flat, and Alan got into it with me, and ended up Merv Tregler won the race. He didn't even know he was so far behind, and we were both knocked out of the race.
Yep. Yeah. Cozy had
not over till it's over.
No. There's many. Brett, is that you in that Albany line? Okay, he's still not talking. Okay.
All right.
Anyway, that's fine.
He'll come.
Yeah. One other guy. Here's the guy that solved all the problems. The guy liked both you and Jack, so he bought 2 T-shirts and cut them in half and put them on. That sounds like something you would do. But no, it's always great. It's great to see you back at the racetrack. That is for sure. It's definitely.
Yeah, I like being there. I didn't know if I would. I do. I miss it when I'm, when the modifieds are out there, like
right.
when the sprint cars were there the other night.
Yep.
Like I said, being on the outside of the track like that, you can appreciate the speed.
Yeah.
I never was one for driving down the straight, stopping, turning, and coming back up the other side. What do they call that in NASCAR? Paper clip or something?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's Fonda always has been a momentum track, and like you said,
Yes.
similar to Reading and Flemington, certainly probably the kings of of a track like that. It was just fun to watch, and I'm sure it had to be a ball to drive. Where you get some of these other tracks, I say you went traveling all around most all the tracks you competed at, but
right.
like I say, the Valley was the Valley's a unique situation there.
Yeah, the Valley. I just did something about the Valley. Howie treated me well, and I wish I could have still been in racing when he took over Albany Saratoga. But I tried to work with Howie. He tried to help us as much as he could, and he bent over backwards for us and to get us to come down there. And I finally gave in to Hauser because that was where Hauser liked to race.
Yep.
We tried it for a while, but I just couldn't. It just didn't feel right to me.
Yeah, everybody, has their own. Everybody, all the greats at Fonda, yourself included, made a stab down there. Bill Wimble went down for a while. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons that ended his career as well. But Jack went for a year or so.
Pete Corey went.
Pete Corey, yeah. Everybody, back in the day, that was the deal. You had an option. Nowadays, with so much specialty here, guys don't go back and forth like they used to. And then you got guys like Tremont who, never left. Has been there for 50 years. So it.
Yeah. No, I'd like to. It didn't. I left one night at Fonda. It was raining. They knew they were going to rain out, but they didn't want to call it. It was like 5 o'clock, 5:30. So we loaded the car up and we left and went to Orange County and got there for the Consi and raced before they even canceled, just because we wanted to race.
Right. Yep. They're nowadays I guess I don't know if it's a cost. Yeah, because back in the day when you guys were traveling all over the country, gas was, I don't know if it was a quarter a gallon, but it wasn't certainly $3 and $4, or diesel is crowding $4 again now. So it like I say, it was possible to travel and not ruin your racing budget totally just to get to the racetrack.
Yeah, I always said back during the CRC races and that every promoter should have had to tow a race car to the track for somebody, and they cut down the running around like they did.
Yeah,
we'd run rainouts. We ran, you'd run they'd have a rainout show at, I'm trying to think where we ran. We ran down to Penn National or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was a rainout, and they had it on a Thursday, like a whatever night it was. The next night, we raced Thompson, Connecticut, and the next day we ran Merrittville.
Okay. Yep.
You know what I mean? They went from blacktop to dirt.
Yep.
And they would have run a lot closer. The series should have always. I was telling somebody the other night at Fonda, the way it should be is they should have the dirt car or whatever it is, the big shows.
Yep.
They should have that, just a traveling show, run one a week. This week run Fonda, next week run the Valley or whatever, and just keep going from track to track. And when they're not racing the modifieds, run the sportsman cars or a 358 class or some downgrade a little bit where you'd separate the animals from the rest of them. There's guys there that can't possibly compete money-wise.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's been...
One time but then they started with the big trailers, and one time a guy says to me, I don't want to say who it was. Well, actually, I can't remember who it was. But he blew his motor Friday night at Malta. He had a big, expensive trailer and truck and everything. And he says, hey, can I borrow a spare motor? I says, you don't have a spare motor? He goes, no, I go to race your truck then tomorrow.
Yeah, basically, yes. Yep.
You know, Brightville come in with an open trailer or a drive-on truck with a toolbox flopping on it and won Syracuse.
Yeah. Now, I still, and listeners are probably, 30, 40 years we've been doing this, heard this story 100 million times, but I'll still never forget the 1 year at Syracuse when Kenny Brightbelt broke a motor at Syracuse. And that was back in the day when, like you said, he had pretty much an open trailer, like everybody. He and his father, which were big men, that was always a joke. Kenny's hand was as big as most people's head.
Right.
He and his father, literally, with no engine jack, lifted a big black motor out of the race car and set it off on a side on the backstretch or over in the parking area over in the, and my God, I mean, a dead weight, whatever the hell a big black weighs, and they just, okay, we're taking this out. And they did.
Yeah, his dad was a real nice guy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the whole day, in fact, I had a great time drinking a few beers with Kenny a couple years ago down at the EMPA convention there when he got put in the Hall of Fame down there. And I mean, I don't know if he's raced any yet this year, but he was racing, the cars down at Tobias's track there, the Speedsters. But he still thinks, he said, if I could get a good ride where I didn't have to do any work for it, he says, I'm past that. I can still kick these guys' ass, and I think you probably feel the same way.
I would like to be able to just go out there and give it one last shot by myself, and then I could get out of the car and I could say, there, I can't do it. Now I'm happy.
Yep.
But you never admit that you can't do it until you...
Right.
Even when you stop doing it, you don't think you can't do it. So
right.
Like I said, these guys don't realize that at one night it's going to be their last win.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Billy Pouch. Billy, that was another, like a Jack Johnson deal. We weren't really enemies, but we didn't go out drinking together
right.
and stuff like that.
Well, you never drank at all, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, you never drank at all. Yeah.
Part of his crew actually traveled to Canada with me when I went up there to race and help me.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Lombardi and a couple of the other guys. And one night when I beat Billy at Flemington, he sent Nick over to tell me that, congratulations, but you're not going to get a head start next week because I started ahead of him. One time we were down in Daytona for Speed Week, and I come out, and my truck and trailer was out in the middle of the parking lot. His crew pulled the pin out of the linkage and rolled my truck out in the middle of the parking lot with the car on it.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
like I said, him and I, we didn't hang together. I know I had a lot of respect for him.
Yep.
And I hope he had some respect for me. He always, you know, like I said, we had our times.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I say all great racers.
It's like being married. It's like being married
Right.
to these guys. You know?
Yep.
It's, you know, your wife wants to throw you out, and then the next day everything's
Right,
good.
right. Oh, another old timer about our age, Ray Halgus just signed in and said he used to pit next to him back in the '70s in the late models, and he said you.
Yeah, I tried that for a while.
He said you torched those '61 Dodges every week. He said.
Yeah. I was really limited then. I didn't know what I was doing. People don't think I know now, but back then I really didn't know what I was. My first car, I actually swapped a set of mag wheels with Freddie Pratt for the car,
Okay.
for the whole race car.
Yep.
Every time I see Freddie, he goes, "I know it's all my fault."
Right. It goes back to, like we were talking to Bobby Viren last week. That was his beginning story. He swapped a cow in for a race car. So everybody has, which we didn't even touch on. I want to do that. Obviously, Brett's listening and figures that we got enough time, so we'll grab him here the next week or two to promote his show anyway. But how did you all get started in this? Was your dad a racer, or you just went to the races?
My father raced, but that was back when they were, you know what I mean, a leather helmet.
Yeah, right.
Car belt, seat
Right.
belt. So, he raced at White's Beach. And,
Okay.
The flatheads and.
Yep.
He liked it. They'd go race, they'd go drink, they were happy.
Yeah, so it's so it was kind of in the blood, and you ended up saying, well, we can, but basically on a shoestring, and as it turned out, you must have got good enough, fast enough, so you're able to get a hold of some people that had a little bit more money to sponsor you. So that was good.
Like I said, if it wasn't for Jerry, I would have probably never been noticed.
Mm-hmm.
He loved to go racing. He loved having, I think, being involved with me because he loved controversy that always came up.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and you speak of that, but I never, we talked, it's legend that Kenny Shoemaker was never past walking down and flattening somebody after a race or whatever. Your crew, I'm sure, from time to time had some issues with this, that, and the other thing, but you weren't a fighter. I mean, you were.
I wasn't a scrapper.
No.
I was a lover.
Yes. Right.
Did I say that out loud?
But I say, you talk controversy, but most of it was just, like you say, with the promoters or different rulings. You never, like you say, weren't noted as, going back. I mean, we've got pretty tame here over the years now. Well, I don't know if you're keeping up with stuff, but 2 weeks ago, I guess it was now, Rick Lawback was a top driver down in Pensy, Jersey, was kicked out of all of New Jersey, which are 2 now, all of New Jersey's racetracks for, and obviously he says he doesn't regret anything, but on a misalignment that he felt at Bridgeport. So he stopped the race, basically kept going around, basically like you did. They had a tow truck chasing him, and he held up the show for, 25, 30 minutes. And finally one of the officials reached in, and I don't know what the official was doing that for anyway, and Rick decided to drive off with the official. hanging on his race car, which is not a good thing. We understand that.
No,
But
I always threatened Kenny Marshall when he was flagging that if he ever stuck his head in my car, I was going to head off into Saratoga. I said, the next time you do beat on the roof of my car, I'm going to get you to stick your head in the window, and I'm going to grab you and give you a ride down to the pit gate.
right.
So whenever he started trying to put me to the rear or something, it was funny because he busted on me more than any flagger, and he used to tow my race cars for me.
Okay.
And
Right, yeah.
I'd keep motioning to him that I couldn't hear him, and he wouldn't stick his head in the car because he knew I'd grab him.
Right. Well, he's actually he's back in the Silks at Albany Saratoga. So
Really?
Oh yes, it's kind of interesting how things. Yes, or he was a week ago. He is he's in the pits now most of the time. The pit announcers, but he's been there for the last couple of years, riding in the tow truck and doing different stuff. But the regular flagger was off anyway last week, and he was he was flagging there for a couple of weeks anyway. So he's still waving them from time to time. But anyway, like I say, I can see where they would have an issue with it. But New Jersey, of course, is regulated. Well, I think it was back in the day. You were regulated by the state police. The state police said no, you can't do that for tomorrow. So he's left, and now he's going to Orange County for the rest of the season. But in the old days,
New Jersey, the state runs it.
Right. In the olden days, I'm sure you had nights at Flemington or other racers did that. Certainly, things got out of hand from time to time, but everybody else say when the night's over, go on, and we'll see you next week. It wasn't this whole deal. Well, okay, you're kicked out of the state for 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever the heck it was, but it obviously wasn't the smartest thing to do. But we saw the same thing happen with a driver and a passenger at Fonda a couple years ago, and that was handled correctly, I guess. But I don't know. We cut a little bit too PC, but of course, dragging somebody along a race car is not a really good thing. So
sometimes it has to be done, though.
Yeah. Well, Rick said he's not going to take anything back. He's done with New Jersey anyway, so we'll see. But that's how much. But you had mentioned earlier about the fragileness of the new cars. But with that said, they're a whole lot safer than the cars that you guys raced.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I thought with the new seats and all that padding, everything, I could probably get away with it with the blood thinners. But the doctor says that you still bang your head and your brain hits up against your skull from the inside.
Yes. Yep. So, but
no, I guess it's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, like I say, you aren't the only. I mean, here we got. As many years. How many years was it that you actually did race there totally?
I don't even know. 25, my wife
said. Yeah, she would know. Yeah. But, and not, with all the, we've talked about it. Oh, here's another guy coming in. Ask CD about when he went out at Granby. So I guess you went out about every racetrack you were at, at one time, which is,
Granby?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an adventure going to the hospital.
Oh.
They take you up there, but because of insurance, it's through the government. The ambulance could only go so far, so they had to stop 2 or 3 times and transfer me from one ambulance to the other.
Okay.
The guy at the kid at the track said, "I'll go with you because I can speak English and French."
Yeah, that's
he was from up there.
Yeah.
So he jumps in the front of the first ambulance. By the time we got to the hospital, the kid was gone. He never got out of the first
ambulance. So you were on your own to learn French real fast.
And they really I know they know English because all the television was, back then it was tough because you go into a restaurant and the menu would have the price down the center.
Yep.
And have English on one side and French on the other.
Yep.
And you pointed to what you wanted, and the waitress knew.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, we had a good time in Canada. They took care of me up there, the promoters. You know, they treated us right. They appreciated us coming.
Yeah, that all has gone by the wayside. I know, we go back, there's certain drivers, certain tracks have certain deals. We all know that, Howie takes care of his guys, the best as he can. If they have problems, he, find some way to make sure they are there next week because he realizes that everybody puts fannies in the seats. But, years ago, when the companies were running Fonda, I know that half the field, I think, got put up in the motel across the river from any of the guys that traveled, hours or tours or whatever. The promoters just don't do that anymore. I don't, economics wise, I guess that's certainly
it doesn't, it doesn't help them any because
right.
The guys will come anyhow, the ones that are going to come, and the other ones won't come just because they're getting that.
Right.
Yep. Canada was a lot of fun. The crew enjoyed going up there. My wife, the kids, they all loved it.
Yep.
And we had a good time up there, and but all that, everything changes.
Yep. Oh, we got another another addition.
One thing.
Go ahead.
Well, one thing I'd like to say before I'm gone here.
Yeah.
These guys that race at Fonda on Saturday nights, I wish they'd try and keep up to the pace car.
Okay.
They keep falling back. I don't know what's going on. I'm doing, 25, 30 miles an hour, and all of a sudden, the yellow lights go out, and they should be getting ready to go racing, and they're dropping back. I don't know if they like that bumping or what. I think that they should have like a flying restart.
Yeah, well, I think that's it. And they're trying to get an advantage on somebody because they know they can't start till they get over by the the VP barrel over on 3-4.
Like, when I was putting into the infield, which I mentioned to Pete, I think that might be a better deal because the pace car is taking a beating, in the outside. And I can remember coming around there for the green and being all over the pace car. I'm not, you don't have to worry about, it just don't hit me. I don't care what you do.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Yes.
Keep up.
Oh my goodness! There one guy. One more flip. Devil's Bowl. You picked a dozen ears while you're out there. He said. Dozen ears of corn while you're out there.
One night up there, I went off the third turn with Budka's car, I think it was. I went straight, went up the bank at the end of the guardrail, went flying out into the field, and the car flipped in the air and didn't do any damage. And I think Jack was behind me that night, and he said that it was like the Dukes of Hazzard when the car went up and went past the light, it just disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I said, even though, certainly those nights probably were a lot of everybody remembers, and you probably do as well. They weren't funny at the time, but it's all part of the part of the memories. That's for sure. But it was it's been
the whole new generation.
Yeah, and it's taken a while for me. I'm an old guy like you, and it's I've kind of gone along with them. There's a lot of great young talents out there. We talked about Stuart Friesen and the Mueller kids definitely coming up, and Keith Flax, and we got a lot of good guys coming that are willing to spend the money it takes to. So I think we're in fairly good shape there, but it's the guys from the middle of the pack back, and I think that's great what Johnny's doing with your tribute race tomorrow is putting a lot of money in the middle and helping it out. And I know you being a traveler a lot, you would always appreciate that little extra if you didn't happen to win that night.
Yeah, we always tried to get some kind of guarantee. You know what I mean? The promoters were good back then.
Yeah.
If you had trouble, they would, at least cover your expenses, so you could get home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's a completely different deal now. It's the fans. My great granddaughter's favorite driver is Bobby Barron.
Yep.
Eric Mack was over the other day. He showed me a couple of panels that they're gonna raffle off or something. I autographed them, and my great granddaughter, was next door at my daughter's, and they come over, and my daughter says, "Tell Eric who your favorite driver is." She started the Bobby Barron dance.
Yeah. Well, that's odd.
Bobby's he's the same way. He drives like I did.
Yes. Yep.
I like
a lot of
Bobby.
similarities there.
We're
Yep.
friends. And the Palmers do a lot for Bobby.
Yep.
And I never met Dover Dave, but I see his truck there, camper, whatever it was, Saturday.
Yeah. Well, he's a he's been one of the
hand in what Bobby does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's been in it, as long as you raced against Buzzy, and he's still.
I thought he got out of racing altogether, and then the other day I said to somebody, "Geez, whose truck is that?" And they go, "That's Dover Dave."
Yeah.
Like, wow, I thought he was, stopped to get out of the sport. I know he was still Bobby still had the Dover brakes, but.
Right, he'll have the 00 over at the tribute tomorrow night. It's certainly the Palmers have taken over the major deal now, but Dave was there.
Yeah,
Dave was there for years with Bobby. Wouldn't be racing. In fact, that's what Bobby and I talked about last week. If it hadn't been for Dave, he probably would have been out of racing by now, because there was some slim years where Dave was the only guy that was. But Dave's been hanging in there for good long time. He's fighting cancer too, and that's not a great thing. But
Bobby's trying. He's aggressive.
Yep.
And Palmer's help him a lot. And Elton, I got a big motorhome diesel. And Elton's my mechanic on that.
Okay. Yes.
You gotta have somebody you can trust.
Oh yeah. No, Elton's the guy, because he's been doing that for a great long time. Got a tremendous business. Well, he has to have a tremendous business to keep a race car on the racetrack. That's for sure. But he's a one-man. Well, him and Carol are a two-man band over there, so they get a lot of work done in a short period of time. Oh, yeah, people now.
They're back from the day. They're like racing used to be.
Right. Oh,
they love it. They'd rather do that than anything, I think.
All right. Well, we got a couple more people who are asking. Jim Baker wanted me to tell you that Teresa wants you to come back to work. So.
Teresa.
Yeah. Whoever that is.
Jim Baker.
Jimmy Becker. Tell CD that Teresa wants to come back. So I don't know. Somebody you would work with down at the Browns or whatever. I don't know.
Wade's.
Wade's.
I don't think I can go back to Wade's.
Okay.
That was I was there for 2.5 years, 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
I was on call all the time, and
yep.
I loved working with the drivers, and they loved me, and everything was going good, but I just couldn't continue.
Oh yeah. No,
I literally my cell phone, I'd do 5,000 minutes a month, and I'd have like 3,000 text messages. And,
right, yeah.
All night the phone is ringing, guys. I did it the way you should do it. I did it like I did everything else. And my theory is, if you're going to do something, you got to do it 110%.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Or don't waste your time.
Yep. And on that note, somebody also, now we're getting crazier. They want to know if you ever got tempted to put a bus sideways in a turn.
There was a picture on my webpage of the bus on the fair at the Moody Mile.
Okay, that's right too. Yeah, I remember that now. Yep.
Yeah, I had a group of seniors up there for Senior Day, and they let them park on the track, and so they don't have to walk from the parking lot.
Right.
and all the other buses left. So I got out and I turned the bus a little, and I turned the wheels to the right, and I got in the cinder track, and I took a picture, and I took another picture until I got one that looked good.
Yeah.
And then my son says, you should have took the tire tracks out of the dirt where you drove the bus.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. That kind of gave it away a little bit.
What do you want from me?
Somebody else was been a Kenny Shoemaker fan as well, because they want to know what Shoemaker had said about him. I don't know what he's referring to, but...
I don't know either.
Okay.
I had trouble with Shoemaker because, again, we didn't have any issues. We had issues on the track, but with Kenny, I think the problem was I was on my way up the ladder.
Yep.
And Kenny was on his way down the ladder.
Yep.
And those guys didn't want to give up a step to anybody, and I wouldn't have wanted it any other way.
Right.
You know, I did what I did, and I did it against the best.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel I could have done any better. And it's just so different now.
Oh yeah.
No, I enjoy being at Honda, and
yep.
I just wish they'd keep up.
Yeah. Well,
I told Bobby one day, him and Stewie, I went over to Stewie and I said, I'm driving the pace carts and I try and keep up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But them other guys, they just can't seem to get it through their head that, keep up. It's a pace car. Isn't that the pace car's pace in the race?
Yes, it used to be. Of course, I don't know.
Watch somebody run over me.
I go back.
Somebody will run over me Saturday night.
Yeah, I go back. Yeah, I go back to being old school. But I remember years that I went to when I lived in Pennsylvania for a couple of years. That I used to go to Nazareth every Sunday, and they never had a pace. You never saw a pace car. It was the leader set the pace, and it was up to him to go. And I always thought that was probably the best thing to do. But
I like the Delaware starts where they have one car in the front row and then 2x2x2. Because if you're leading the race, you should have some advantage on a restart.
Yeah, well, they've done it for until you came. I guess this year. Well, up until I guess last year they dropped it.
Well, they were talking at the drivers' meeting Saturday night at Fonda, and I wasn't aware of it. But I guess the lap cars go around to the rear on a restart.
Yes.
But you're not really down another lap, and you don't gain a lap. Well, I asked a couple of the officials, and I said, What if you don't want to go to the rear? What if you plan on passing a leader to get on lap?
Right.
Then what do you do?
Yeah.
I picture nights like at Malta on one night with John Bruno's car. I unlapped myself 4 or 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus, you start in the back and you come up, you get lapped.
Yep.
You come out of pits, you're down 4 or 5 laps. You get coming up through. You work your way up to like right behind the leader. The yellow comes out. You got to go back to the end of the pack again.
Yeah. Yep. There's not too many guys that can do that anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, if it's a penalty on the cars that did the lapping because.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Because you got lap cars between you and the next car, and then now they're gone, but it makes a better race. I'm not knocking it or
right.
I don't want it to sound like I think they should do it another way. It was just funny when I asked the official.
Right.
Well, what if you don't want to go?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and that to be on the devil's advocate side too, is the same. You're probably going to end up lapping those guys again in about another 5 laps because that's usually the way that works out too. And that it does make it for more exciting, but it does penalize the leader to a certain extent because there's some guys you follow for 10 laps and can't get around them and finally do, and then the caution comes out and
Yeah.
you got to start all over again. But that's always racing.
Saturday night, I went out for 3 laps with that replica car.
Yep.
Schofield.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had like a little race, and the guys from the pits, Bob Mortensen actually said to me, and I was surprised that he watched it. I didn't think anybody knew what we were even going to do.
Oh.
And he goes, Jesus, he went faster racing against you than he did in his race.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, thanks for taking some time. It was really great and really fun,
Okay.
and it's certainly well worth going tomorrow night. And hopefully you guys have a great time and see a lot of maybe old fans you haven't seen in quite a while. And I'm sure there are going to be.
No.
That place is packed every week. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with all the people, but they'll figure something out because they've been packing them to the road every week anyway. But well deserved. And again, as an old fan, so great to see you back at the Track of Champions every week, just to see wandering around. I say you're part of the history there, and certainly Dave Lape and all his crew have done. That's, I told Pete a couple of years ago, that's the best thing that Matrazek's done to that for that track, is have that museum over there where people can get a chance to go see. And
I went over there to it Saturday night, but then I got involved
Right.
with the 61 car, and
right.
I didn't even get a chance to go in.
Yep.
But
when you get a
I
chance,
don't know, maybe I'll try and make some of them shows this year. I want to start traveling some more and
cool.
get some use out of my motorhome. You know?
Yeah, there you go. Yep. Now you got Elton's
Everybody's joking. It's the house with the expensive lawn ornament on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, maybe you got custom to do up the body panels for Stewie's car tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Maybe you can get him.
Custom did a nice job.
Maybe.
Yeah, Licata says he'll do a mural on the back for me.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, well, you have a battle of the sign makers here. That'll be good.
Yeah, they can each do one.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, custom. I can't say enough about Custom. Custom was my boy.
Yep.
My painter. My
Oh, yeah.
brush.
Yep.
You know, you never knew what you were getting when you sent him. A couple of times he'd bring the nose piece to the track with him because he had stuff on it that might have been controversial.
Oh, yeah.
And would be afraid we weren't going to leave it.
Yep. And
Custom's awesome. Licata's great. It's a talent.
Oh yes. Yep. Yeah. Much like you as a race car driver, it's something that most of us don't have, and it's great to watch guys like them and you that do have it.
Those guys love the sport. They can make more money doing a sign, and they'll do that.
Oh yeah.
They'll paint cars all day and night. Dave Davies, same way.
Yep.
But my main painter was Custom.
Yep. And I'm sure.
Every time we needed something, he'd show up.
Yep. And I'm sure your cars were some of the ones that got painted on the thruway on the way to Syracuse over the years.
Oh yeah. We'd have to get Custom down the Hausers and hold them captive till they got it done.
Right.
Like Jack used to have to do with Davies.
Yep.
In Lido. Some stories I heard about them bring Davies in and then wouldn't let him go home till he finished the car.
Yeah. Well, that's the uniqueness. These talented guys, they all have their own way. They have, they got to be inspired. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
Dave Davies, he was pinstriping a car, one of our cars back when I just first started, and his son is climbing all over him while he's laying down this 1/8-inch stripe down the side of the car like it was a printer doing it.
And now And I don't know if that's the same son or not, but his young son, Dave Jr., is doing the same thing and been doing it for a long time. I see him every bike week. He travels all over the country painting motorcycles along with.
Yeah, they got a
the motor-
bicycle. I went past his shop every day when I was going to Wade.
Oh, okay. Yep.
That's on Dwaynesburg Road there.
And he does absolutely gorgeous work as well. I mean, he's a chip off the old block. There's no doubt about that. He's just as good as his dad was. It's
yeah, and there's all this vinyl stuff they're using now is like a slap in the face to the guys that can really do it.
Yeah. It's unfortunately probably a dying breed, but hopefully somebody will keep going with it. Dave Jr. is making a good living, going these motorcycle stuff and whatever. And I didn't even realize he had a high performance motorcycle shop there. He sells parts and stuff for racing motorcycles, and he stayed with the sport. I had him confused because I saw Dave Davies, and I said something about, now you guys paid for Jack Johnson? He says, yeah. He says, I did some of Jack, and come to find out it was his father did most of it, but he was just starting out at that point. He says, yeah, I did a couple of Jack's cars, so he stayed with it, which is a great thing. Well, I gotta let you go because I know it's late for. Thanks so much again for taking time with us.
Okay.
And have a great time tomorrow, and say hi to all your fans that haven't seen you for a long time. I think you're gonna have a long line there tomorrow.
Looking forward to seeing them.
Yep.
And I really want to thank Licata for all he did. He really stepped up and got it all together.
Yeah, I told him last time they had, after the first Jack, I said, you may have a calling here. I think you might start getting into this promotion business here a little bit. So, he got...
Yeah, he can talk.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he could sell snowballs to the Eskimos.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what we need. That's what we need in this sport. That's for sure. Okay, now I'm getting messages from the wife. Say goodnight. So we're going to say goodnight.
Okay.
Thanks again, CD.
Talk to you later.
Yeah, have fun.
See you tomorrow. Bye.
Yeah, bye. All right, CD Koval, Superman, the original Superman. We are out of time. I apologize to all of you Brett Hearn fans. We just simply had so much fun with CD. I will touch base with Brett tomorrow night and see if we can't reschedule here. We want to get him on before his big show, which is coming up at the end of the month over at Albany Saratoga as well. Thanks for hanging in there. I know there was a lot of you that showed a lot of interest in this today when I put it up, so hope you enjoyed yourself. Don't forget it's on. It'll be on a podcast within the next 48 or so hours, whenever the engineer gets a chance to do that. So if you missed anything, jump in at any time and find out all the rest. We'll be back next Monday night for another go-round of Wheel People. I'm your host, Ed Lamberton. Keep it between the boards. We'll see you over at Albany Saratoga tomorrow night for the tribute between two of the greatest drivers that ever touched down on the racetrack over at Albany Saratoga or anywhere. Super CD Koval and the jumper Jack Johnson. So maybe the way Ronnie's running, maybe Ronnie could win that for both of them. As you had heard, Ronnie used to ride to the races with CD, so it'd be kind of neat for him to pick up that win. We'll see. We'll find it all out tomorrow night, and then of course our regular Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And good to see the Ridge having a good turnout for their modified show. We'll be back next Monday night. See ya at the racetrack.
shut him off.